Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Atty. Alex Lacson. I am a lawyer by profession. I am a graduate of the UP College of Law in Diliman. I have also taken a summer program for lawyers at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA. I have also served as a legal consultant of the United Nations Development Program in the Philippines for a number of years. I am currently a co-founder and partner of a Malcolm Law firm in Ortigas, Pasig City. But while I am a lawyer by profession, my first passion is writing books for the country. And I would like to share with you briefly why I wrote my first book, 12 Little Things Every Filipino Can Do to Help Our Country, and why I decided to become a writer of books for our country. 22 years ago, in the year 2000, there was an Asian financial crisis that crippled many countries in Asia, including the Philippines. And because of that crisis, many Filipinos, some friends, classmates, and relatives decided to migrate to the US or Canada or even Europe. Among them were two of my brothers. They sold everything that they had in the Philippines and decided to migrate. My older brother migrated to the US and together with his family, and my youngest brother migrated to Canada. After I brought my brother and his family to the airport, I was also thinking of migrating abroad. I was tempted. So for almost 1 year, I was thinking about it. And but after 1 year of thinking about it, I decided to stay in the Philippines and live my life in the country where God planted me, along with the members of my family. But while I decided to stay in the country, there was this question that haunted me. Paano na lang kung 20 years later, lalong lumala ang sitwasyon ng ating bansa? Paano na lang kung 20 years later, hindi gumanda ang sitwasyon natin sa ating bansa? So I also wanted a developed in a prosperous Philippines for my children and for the Filipino people. So I went into reflection and I asked myself, what could I do to help our country? And upon reflection, I realized that I have always been a writer. I was a writer when I was in high school. I became a newspaper columnist right after I became a lawyer. And I also became an editor-in-chief of a lawyer's magazine. And I told myself that maybe this is the small talent that God gave me. And so I decided to use that small talent in writing books for the country. It was really then that I decided to become a writer of books for our country. And now I'd like to share with you the first book that I wrote. It was entitled 12 Little Things Every Filipino Can Do to Help Our Country. I started writing that in the year 2004, and I published it in 2005. To my pleasant surprise, pasensya na po kayo, it became an instant national bestseller. Again, my apologies in saying that, but I really believe that it is part of the story of this book. The book became a massive success. On its first year of publication, I received more than 300 speaking invitations from many of the biggest organizations in the country. They invited me to share the message of the book. And in the next 5 years, I have received almost 100 to 200 speaking invitations every year. And because of that book, I was awarded the Good Filipino, Good Citizen Award by the EDSA People Power Commission in 2009. And because of that book, I was invited by former President Benigno as Simeon Aquino, Noyno Aquino, to run for the Senate in 2010, all because of that book. But again, my apologies for saying that, but I really believe that there is a lesson why that book became a massive success. No? And I would like to believe that it is actually the love of the Filipino people. I realize that there are so many Filipinos out there who love our country and they want to do something. And when they learned about this book, 12 Little Things Every Filipino Can Do to Help Our Country, they were just excited to get a copy and read. And dahil gusto din nila tumulong sa bansa, kahit sa mga maliliit na bagay. So let me now share with you the 4 principles that I believe in, why I wrote the book. So the title of my talk is Small Acts of Patriotism, Small Acts of Love for Our Country. This is based on the book that I've written, 12 Little Things Every Filipino Can Do to Help Our Country. Now I would like to share with you the 4 principles that I deeply believe in, why I wrote the book. And the first principle is this. Good citizenship is one of the key parts of the solution that we seek for a country to develop and progress. Good citizenship, what we as a people contribute in nation building. The second principle, we are all part of the solution. Bawat Pilipino. Every Filipino, wherever he or she is in our archipelago or in the world, is part of the answer to the many questions and problems in our country. The third principle, small acts of love, small acts of patriotism are actually big in building a nation prosperous and great. The fourth principle, kaya ng Pilipino, kaya din nating magtatag na isang world-class Philippines. But as a people, we must first learn how to discipline ourselves to become world-class citizens before we can build a world-class country. So I really believe it is a prerequisite. Before we can build a world-class country, we must first become a world-class citizen. So let me now share with you some of the little things in the book. As I mentioned a while ago, the book is about small acts of patriotism, small acts of love for our country that every Filipino can do wherever he or she is in our country or in the world. It is about how we can become a good citizen or how we can become a good Filipino. So the first little thing in the book is follow traffic rules. Why is this the first little thing? Because traffic rules are the most basic of our laws in the country. If we learn to follow them, it could be the lowest form of national discipline that we can develop as a people. So perhaps this is a good start for us. I believe that the culture of discipline is crucial for our country to progress and develop. The second little thing is always ask for an official receipt whenever you buy anything or pay for anything. Whenever we ask for an OR, there is a record of that sale transaction that you made. This record of sale transaction would force the businesses to pay their taxes properly and would lead to higher tax collections for the government, which means that there will be more funds for government, for public schools, public hospitals, for small farmers, among others. No? Thus, by merely asking for an OR, it prevents companies or businesses from cheating on the government. Second, the third little thing, buy local, buy Filipino. Whenever we buy locally produced goods, we help create jobs for the Filipinos. We support our economy, not the economy of other countries. Buying Filipino means supporting the Filipino people. The fourth little thing is speak positively about the Filipino, about ourselves and the country. Words have power. The words that we use can build or destroy our country, the Filipino image, and the Filipino brand. Every Filipino is an ambassador of our country. Every Filipino is a builder of the Filipino image and the Filipino brand. The next little thing, the fifth little thing, is respect your traffic officer, policeman, and other public servant. When we respect a traffic officer or policeman, it honors and dignifies the traffic officer or policeman. It compels him to do his job well. And because respect honors and dignifies any person, It motivates him to perform his job well. So it is respect is important, especially among our public servants. The sixth little thing is plant a tree, segregate, recycle, conserve. Philippines is not only our country. It is our home as a people. It is the home of the Filipino people. So we should do our best to make it clean and beautiful and sustainable. The seventh little thing is support your church. I believe that every church in our country performs works for the people, for the community, and for God. So whenever we help our church, we actually show our love for our neighbor, for community, for country, and for God. The eighth little thing is during elections, do your solemn duty. When we elect leaders during elections, we elect leaders not only for the country, we elect leaders for our family, for our relatives, no, for ourselves. So it is important that we should elect leaders correctly and properly. The ninth little thing, pay your employees well. Every company must try to address and end poverty within its own backyard. Dapat yung mayaman, hindi lang yung may-ari ng company. Dapat pati yung mga empleyado, including yung nasa pinakamababa na antas, dapat sila din ay umaangat sa kanilang pamumuhay. Every company must create prosperity not only for its owners, but also to all its employees. Blessings must be shared. It builds families. It builds a nation. The 10th little thing, taxes, pay your taxes. Taxes are the lifeblood of our government. It is what builds our public schools, our public hospitals, our roads, our bridges, and many others. No? It is what pays our teachers, our soldiers, and other public servants. So taxes actually are the ones that keep our government intact. The 11th little thing, adopt a scholar or adopt a poor child as your own. There are more than 5 million out-of-school youth in the country. Every family who can afford should adopt at least one poor child as a scholar. There are actually 23 million families in our country. If you can convince 5 million families who can afford each one adopting one scholar, those 5 million out-of-school youth in our country could be sent back to school. Investing in our youth is investing in our future in the country. And the 12th little thing, be a good parent, teach your kids to love our country and to follow the law. A child of today is the citizen and leader of tomorrow. Parents are the molders and teachers of future citizens and leaders of our country. If we plant seeds of patriotism in the hearts and minds of our youth today, they would become giant patriots of our country someday. So those are the 12 little things that every Filipino can do to help our country. Again, as I mentioned a while ago, if we learn to become world-class citizens, our Philippines could become a world-class country someday. For our country to become a world-class, for our Philippines to become a world-class country, we must first learn to discipline ourselves to become world-class citizens. Now the question of these 12 little things are titled little things, but they are actually not little nor small. Each of these little things requires sacrifice, discipline, love for others, and love for our country. If we do these 12 little things and adopt them as part of our habit, there is going to be a radical transformation that will happen to us. We would become good Filipinos, good human beings, and world-class citizens. Now the question, how is this principle of small acts of patriotism or love for our country as exemplified by these 12 little things related to NSTP, particularly to ROTC, LTS, and CWTS? NSTP aims to inculcate patriotism to all Filipino youth. It aims to teach and train all Filipino youth to become good Filipinos, to become good citizens, to become patriotic members of our society. But patriotism is such a big word, broad and intangible. It is difficult to teach. So how can we teach patriotism in an effective manner? How to practice or live out patriotism in our daily life as citizens is important, but it is difficult to teach. The principle of small acts of patriotism or small acts of love for our country, as exemplified by these 12 little things, could be one of the best ways in teaching and practicing patriotism every day by every citizen, by every Filipino, wherever they are in our archipelago or in the world. These small acts of patriotism would definitely be a good material, if not crucial additional material, for all ROTC students. They would also be a good and important learning material for all LTS students, especially those who are teaching other youth in public high schools. The principle of small acts of patriotism should also be brought and taught to the members of communities under the CWTS program, as we need every Filipino, wherever he or she is in our country, to do his or her share in nation building or in building our country. These small acts of patriotism are bite-sized patriotism, something that every Filipino can do on his own, wherever he may find himself in every single day. Emilio Jacinto, one of our country's national heroes, said, "The prosperity of a nation depends upon the people themselves." That's what he said. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of America, said that the habits of our people could determine the destiny of our nation. The habits of our people could determine the destiny of our nation. And that's what we hope to see in our country. For every Filipino to perform small acts of patriotism, small acts of love for our country, not only as a one-time or single act, but as a way of habit every day. That's what we hope to see from our people in our country. And if that happens, our country would be on our way to genuine progress and development. I believe that this principle of small acts of patriotism should be embraced as one of the core principles of NSTP in teaching and practicing patriotism in the most effective manner. Through this principle of small acts of patriotism, our Filipino youth could become one of the best youths in the world, one of the most patriotic, one of the most disciplined, one of the most sacrificing for the greater good of society, perhaps even better than the youths in other countries like Japan, Singapore, China, or Germany. Through this principle of small acts of patriotism, there is hope that we can someday raise a great generation of Filipino youth and Filipino citizens who would become world-class citizens who will build for us the Philippines of our dreams, our dream Philippines. Now let me go to the suggested NSTP projects. For possible NSTP projects, the class can adopt a public high school and teach to all grade 10 students of that public high school the idea of small acts of patriotism, focusing on these 12 little things. Second project, the class can design an awareness campaign program in social media or in the traditional media on the idea of small acts of patriotism, focusing on the 12 little things. So once the class have actually made this awareness campaign program in social media, then the members of the class can promote this on their own in their respective social media platforms. Third, the class can also hold a photo art exhibit of how the members of the class practice or live out the 12 little things during the semester while taking this course. And they can display this in the lobby of the building, in a major building in campus. Third, the class can also make a list of locally made goods and products and promote them, either in social media and in tri-media. So this would encourage other Filipinos to support and buy locally made goods and products. Fifth, the class could also make a list of things an individual person can do in helping address the climate crisis and promote them. I included this because the climate crisis is such a global crisis that we face as a humanity today. And in fact, the United Nations has warned us of the severity of this climate crisis. Sixth, the class can also hold a tree planting activity and in a chosen barangay or LGU that they prefer. Seventh, the class can also adopt a scholar for 1 year, so they can contribute yung baon nila and they can support one scholar for 1 year. This is going to change the life of that scholar. And so these are the 7 suggested NSTP projects for the class. Now, let's go to suggested classroom activities. The first one that I suggest is the members of the class can write a personal essay on the power of little things or small acts of patriotism. I wanted this because this would deepen the belief of every student on the power of the little things or small acts of patriotism. So I hope they would do this, an essay where they can really reflect on the power of little things in their lives or around them. Second, I would encourage the class to read, study, and discuss each of the 12 little things in the book, and thoroughly discuss it. And I think this would, by studying and discussing it, it would deepen their understanding of the 12 little things. Then now, after they have discussed each of those 12 little things, the third possible classroom activity that they can do is for each member of the class to come up with an essay on how they can practice and live out the idea of small acts of patriotism, focusing on the 12 little things every day. So each one should come up with a plan, a personal plan on how to live out each of these 12 little things. And the fourth is a follow through on the third, which is so while they practice and live out each of the 12 little things every day, it would be good if they can document in a personal diary how they live out. So they can actually picture themselves or take a video of themselves, why they do it, and put it in a personal diary. And the personal diary could be read or could be checked, could be submitted to the teacher by the end or every month, no? For that matter. And the fifth suggested classroom activity is I would encourage the members of the class to make a personal list of the important items that they use at home that they can replace. So I hope bawat isa gawin ito, no? Identify nyo lang yung mga important goods that you use at home and try to find a replacement that that is locally produced. So that's the fifth. No? The sixth suggested classroom activity is I would encourage each member of the class to do a personal campaign in social media about the little things that of those 12 little things that they like, especially. I would encourage them to do a personal campaign in social media. I also would like to suggest a report and a discussion on how the Japanese and the Germans live out the idea of small acts of patriotism and what lessons we can learn from them. I specifically listed the Japanese and the Germans because they are among the top peoples in the world who really practice and live out this idea of small acts of patriotism. The Japanese are very good at it. Now, they have almost perfected the idea of patriotism, and they live it out every day. Small acts of patriotism. The Germans are the counterpart of the Japanese in Europe. So it would be good if you can study this and how did you do it and what lessons we can learn from them. And number 8, I would also encourage each member of the class to make a report on how they attempted or they convinced their relatives and friends on the idea of small acts of patriotism, focusing on the 12 little things. So, and that is on the promotion side. And finally, towards the end of the class, maybe in the last day of the class, I would encourage the teacher to ask all members of the class to make a personal pledge to be a good Filipino, to perform small acts of patriotism, small acts of love for our country, and hopefully focusing on the 12 little things. Now, by way of ending, let me say that 60 years ago, South Korea was a very poor country. 90% of its people were extremely poor. It was even called the impossible country by many foreign journalists. 60 years ago, Singapore was also a poor and backward country. So was China. 60 years ago, Philippines was much better than Singapore, South Korea, and China. Pero tingnan niyo po sila ngayon. Kung kinaya nila, dapat kayanin din nating mga Pilipino. Kung nahanap nilang solusyon, dapat hanapin din natin ang solusyon. Good leadership is a key part of the solution. There's no question about that. Radical reforms in our government and in our economic and political systems are also part of the solution. But let us not forget that good citizenship is also a crucial part of the solution that we seek in our country, for our country to progress and to develop. We can do small acts, or whenever we do small acts of love for our country, small acts of patriotism, we do it for our country. We don't do it for our political leaders. We don't do it for whoever is sitting in Malacanang. We do it for our family, and we do it for the Filipino people. The Filipino is not a second-class citizen, not to any person, not to any nationality in the world. If other peoples were able to build prosperous countries for themselves, kaya din nating mga Pilipino to build a developed and prosperous Philippines for our families and for ourselves. We have all the skills and the talents to succeed as a nation. We have all the essentials we need to succeed as a nation. But first, let us discipline ourselves to become world-class citizens so we could build a world-class Philippines. Kaya ng Pilipino, kaya ng Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.